breathing.
And we're live.
Was that a big effort to go live? You were out of breath.
Sounded like a product launch.
I just get really excited right before we go live.
Get really excited.
Awesome.
Really excited or scared as because the audio might completely cut out.
Can you still hear us? No.
We'll find out in 10 minutes after.
No, we're good.
catches up.
We're good. We're good.
Okay, good.
And we're live.
Oh,
Alive for real.
we get more people coming to watch
What?
today. I like
Hello.
it. Hello. Ah, this is kind of nice, isn't it? They're here for you.
You know.
They're only here for the Tobi show.
The Dan and the Tobi show. Oh, they're here for Brian today, actually. Exciting episode ahead.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Same. Same.
Yeah.
What have you been watching?
What have I been watching? I've been on HBO a lot. Watchmen. Did you watch that yet?
Oh, I saw the trailer, but I haven't seen it.
Did you ever see the movie or read the
No.
graphic novel?
No.
Probably want to get caught up on
Before
that
watching the
first.
show?
Well, it's a sequel. I mean, you could watch the show, I guess, but you're not going to get like the subtle things that take place.
The
So-
inside jokes, all that
Yeah, it's
stuff.
less jokes. It's more like inside drama.
When you say drama, is it like your kind of drama, Vanderpump Rules style, or like real drama?
If it was Vanderpump Rules, I'd be very happy. That's coming back January 7th. Just FYI. New cast, too.
You say it's on Bravo?
Yeah, where all the good shows are.
I don't even know if I have that channel.
Oh, look deep. You have it
Yeah,
somewhere.
I've never seen
It's
that
an
before.
NBC channel, technically. I think. Well, not technically. I'm pretty sure it's NBC channel.
So it would be on NBC's new streaming network called Peacock. Do you know that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Friends will be on there too. And it's going to be free, I heard.
I did hear that, but it'll have ads. And have you ever watched anything streaming with ads? It's pretty painful.
Hulu has been successful.
I didn't say whether it be successful or not. I said it's painful.
Fair enough.
There's like 8 ads per every 30 seconds.
Yeah,
It's
fair
like
enough.
watching one long ad with a spritz of content. All right, you want to get going?
Yeah.
All right, welcome back to Labs Live. I'm Dan,
Toby.
and today is going to be a really cool episode because we have Brian Munzenberger joining us talking about lifelong learning.
Yeah.
Which is going to be great.
Great episode.
Little housekeeping before we get going, though. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to be notified when we start the stream or when we upload any other video content. Show will be available after, so if you know anybody that would like to watch it after, or if you'd just like to rewatch it, you can do that. There's also a chat room, so you can have a little Q&A if you want for Brian. Brian would love to answer any questions on the spot, as he's smiling off camera right now, excited about that. So before we get into our guest, Brian, let's talk about some news.
Let's go.
And Disney Plus has arrived. Did you sign up?
I haven't, but I will.
Mr. Toy Story himself has not signed up for Disney Plus.
Because I know it's crashing for everybody. There's like this first week of like stress. I don't like stress.
Yeah. Yeah, you take enough naps to fight it, stress off. You'll be fine. But I think it was down a little bit in the morning. I don't know. I was able to watch it for the most part.
What did you watch
day.
first?
That's a great question. I have not personally watched anything, but my son watched Puppy Pals. It's a terrible show.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, you might like it, but it's really bad. And but then I think last night he watched the original 101 Dalmatians. Fun fact, 1961 is when it came out, and they roll the credits at the beginning of the show. So if you're a child, you're already sick of it before it starts. Now,
Yeah.
you got
Slightly related.
Okay.
Netflix signed a deal with Nickelodeon to like combat that, so they can have more content. I think they signed like a 10-year deal.
Do they get SpongeBob?
Probably.
You said
Yeah,
Nickelodeon, right?
Yeah.
They get SpongeBob?
Yeah.
That'd be good. Ellis got SpongeBob shoes recently, and it's a big deal. All right, Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram started. They're piloting like hiding likes. They've experimented in other countries, and now they're gonna do it in the States. I think this week or next week. It was kind of the push to more like mental health. So like to be conscious of that. That like when people see how many likes they have, it can be pretty overwhelming sometimes. So we're yet to see how it plays out.
When you talked to earlier in our little pre-show warm-up, you talked about the fact that some people are hesitant to post content because they're afraid they may not get as many likes.
Yeah, I don't want to get 2 likes.
Right, like I don't get nearly as many likes as you, so sometimes I'm hesitant to post my content, right? Even
That
though
is
I have
real.
some gorgeous photos.
Very great photos,
Yeah.
especially in the fall.
Yes.
And so like now this would probably enable more people to post, hopefully. But also it's kind of like a gate for influencers that are not famous yet, because how would you get discovered if people can't see how good your content are, I feel.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Although it might make just everyone look famous.
True.
You get a good enough camera and you're gonna look pretty sweet.
But now the focus is on the content, not on the following, I guess.
Yeah, I like it. I believe Cardi B throughout maybe watched the comments too, because that is filled with a lot of terrible replies. So it'd be interesting to see if they, listen to more people and do something with the comments as well.
They also hid, the activity view where you could see what other people liked, what they commented on. They got rid of that, and I thought that was a good move as well, because people just use that in a very unhealthy way, I think.
I like Instagram. I wish they weren't owned by Facebook, but alas, they are, and you love Facebook. But
as a company.
Yeah,
Yes.
man, it's all one and the same. So we'll move on. All right. We are ready
Brian
for
show.
our guest. It is now the Brian Show. So welcome, Brian Munzenberger, application developer here at Detroit Labs. Team member number 12, I believe he reminded me of. Started
Yes.
at the same time as Brian Kelly and Jeffrey Sibbald as well.
Yes, we all started on the same day, and I say I'm number 12 because I arrived at the office before they did. So we're 12, 13, and 14.
Nice.
You probably still do arrive at the office before them, don't you?
Likely, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right,
He
so
doesn't skip snow days either. Like whether snow or rain or whatever.
Brian shows up.
Yeah.
Oh,
I like coming into the office.
Yeah.
Oh, we like having you. All right. So, Brian, you've got 17 plus years experience. You have essentially worked with 6 different languages, right? Roughly, and we'll get into that.
Yep.
But normally we kind of jump around specific topics with guests, but your story is interesting, so I kind of want to start from the beginning on this. So if we rewind the clock back roughly 17 plus years, since that's what you told us the experience you have, you took the traditional CS path, computer science path.
Sure did. I went to the University of Michigan in Dearborn. I have a 4-year college degree in computer science. I'm one of those few people who, on day 1 of college, that's what I signed up for. I never switched my major.
That's impressive.
I knew from high school I wanted a job in tech, so I
know you, so
pursued
it's
that.
not surprising, but
Yeah.
that's still impressive.
Yeah, and that's what I did. So I took the whole curriculum.
What's the most valuable thing you learned during your time at or did or anything at?
Yeah. The most valuable thing I did was 3 semesters working at a company in Ann Arbor. This is through the U of M Dearborn co-op program. So they placed me with this company, and I was working on embedded software for hardware that they were building, some telecommunications devices. So at U of M, the primary language at the time was C and C++ to teach computer science undergrads. And the job itself was using C and C++ for that kind of programming.
Okay.
What I really liked about it was doing programming work in a non-academic setting.
Real world.
Yeah.
Real world. I
applications.
was
Very
working on an
different.
actual product that would be shipped to customers. I was writing code that was getting reviewed by actual industry professionals, and I was getting all kinds of advice. And after that first semester doing it, I'm like, this is fantastic.
That's awesome.
So I did 2 more semesters of it, and that's one of the best things I did.
So you're in 4 years of the C++ world. Get ready for your very first job. So I'm assuming you took a job that was C and C++, right? So you jumped nice and smoothly in.
I did not.
All right.
So yeah, when I graduated, like every other graduate, you got to look for something to start your professional career. So basically, out of necessity, I had to be open and flexible. I had what's out there.
Yeah.
Luckily, through some contacts, I was able to get an interview at a company that was primarily warehousing and print shop. But they did have an IT staff, a bunch of programmers who were building websites for B2B applications. So on the strength of some of the projects that I did my senior year of college, I was able to get an interview. The gentleman who eventually became my boss was impressed and saw a lot of potential in me, even though it was building websites in Java. This was not my background.
Yeah.
He said, let's give it a shot.
So out of necessity, you got the job.
I did, yes.
And then what was that what were you gonna say? I was gonna say, what was that transition from C and C++ to Java?
Scary.
Yeah.
Here I am. This is my very first job. I'm a go-getter. I want to have confidence and show that I can do it.
Sure.
But I was thrown in the water, and I didn't know how to swim right away. So I had to learn it. Luckily, I had some other developers that I could kind of pick their brains. Read a lot of tutorials online, kind of following the patterns that other developers at the company were doing, and I eventually got comfortable with it.
That's great. And so, you're doing Java. You're at your first real job out of college, and you're getting ready to change to another job.
Yeah.
Which Java again.
It was.
But the world doesn't stay the same, right?
No. Well, there's a couple of things that were different there. One is the second job that I had. It was B2C. So this is direct to consumer websites.
Okay.
This B2B has a reputation for being. It doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be the latest technology.
Sure.
This is the consumers of the app are not necessarily savvy. They just want it to work.
Sure.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're targeting a consumer, now you need bells and whistles. It needs to be very user friendly. It needs to have some flash and delight. So that was a bit of a shift. So yes, I was still using Java, but now there's a lot of focus on making sure that the app looks good, feels good, and feels modern. So what wound up happening during that time, the web switched from like that old school, you click on something and the whole page refreshes,
Right.
to now it's starting to get a little bit more asynchronous. You click on something and only the data that is supposed to change gets reflected. You do that via JavaScript. I didn't know JavaScript, so I had to learn it.
On your next language.
Was
Yeah,
that
it's my
like
next language? Yeah.
a personal move by you to go learn it, or did it ask you to?
I don't remember being explicitly asked, but I had kind of a drive to do it because I'd been doing Java for so long, and it's kind of nice to know the whole stack of what you're working with. And I'm thinking, I want to be valuable to the company, and I want to be valuable to the industry at large. So I'll learn it.
And I'm kind of seeing a theme here. You've gone from C, C++ to Java, and then eventually to JavaScript. The theme I keep seeing is openness.
Yep.
Just being open to change, being open to move with the industry. Did that come easy?
No.
It seems like it would have, but
Well, in hindsight, maybe, but when you're in the moment, no.
Yeah.
Once you learn something and you get comfortable with it, like, you want to stick with that. That's like your warm security blanket. Like, I'm good at this. I know what's expected of me. I'm just going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
But you'll languish. And doing it for any length of time, it might eventually get boring. So I wanted to challenge myself. Like, I can do better than this. I can learn new things, stay up to date, make myself valuable.
right.
That's how I get personal satisfaction out of what I do day to day, and hopefully that translates to more influence with my peers in the industry, and more money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Such a great mindset.
So now we're on to job number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, maybe your biggest risk. You decided you had talked to a startup, a young, slightly immature Detroit Labs, and we at the time were looking for mobile developers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have these conversations, and you have essentially 2 things to look at. 1, there's a risk in joining a startup. 2, now you have to move to iOS.
Yeah, so this was huge, and I did not make the decision lightly or quickly. Yeah, you're exactly right. You hit on the 2 main things here. One is completely changing platforms. I'd be learning a brand new platform, a brand new language, a whole new ecosystem.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
By the time I joined Detroit Labs, I had only owned a smartphone for 6 months.
It was still new that time.
Yeah, it was. I think
2011, right? Or
yeah, that's right. 2011. It was the original iPhone 4.
Yeah.
I loved the phone. When I went shopping for one, like this looks good to me. I had no idea when I bought it that I'd eventually start developing for the platform. So yeah, there's the whole technology shift, which of course is a little bit scary, but I had done a little bit of it up to that point, so I'm like, I can figure it out.
Yeah.
But then the really big one for me was the cultural shift of the kind of company that I'm going to work for. The company I was working at prior to Detroit Labs was purchased by a much larger company, and when that happened, I felt the weight of like a large corporate structure coming down on me, and I just didn't like it, you know. So when the opportunity came up for Detroit Labs, I'm like, wow, this is a completely different experience.
Yeah.
It's risky, you know, uncertain future,
Sure.
you know. But I eventually made the choice to do it, dive all in, and
Well,
here I
obviously
am. It worked out.
okay.
Yeah, we're glad you took a bet on us. That's fantastic. So joined Detroit Labs, switch into iOS, entirely new ecosystem, different real estate. Everything's different, right? Mobile apps are purpose-built where web apps are not. What was your approach to learning that completely new world?
Yeah, so that yeah. Trying to put my brain back to where I was then. It's overwhelming at first. This it's completely new. So I leaned heavily on some of the developers that were already here who preceded me at the company, one of which was already a very good iOS developer. He had some tips and tricks to kind of get me started. One thing that was huge is iTunes published a series of lectures from Stanford University. It's basically their iOS programming class.
So good.
That was invaluable. The first maybe dozen or so of those laid a fantastic foundation. And one thing that you learn when you start doing this over time is that even though the language may change, a lot of the underlying fundamentals don't. I'm lucky to have that 4-year degree where I was taught things like data structures and algorithms and operating systems and all that.
Yeah.
A lot of that was still applicable, even though it's a different language. So all I had to learn was like the syntax and the SDK and what are the entry points and how do I actually build an iOS app. But like networking and all that's
Right.
that's
The
all the
foundation
same.
of scaffolding was there. It sounds like as long as you could pull yourself back and see that big picture, it became easier to work inside of it.
And then just like every other transition I've made, working with the other developers here. The first project that I worked on at Detroit Labs, I was paired with another developer who, just like me, was brand new to iOS. And we kind of just bumbled around a bit and figured it out. Like, well, we want to do this thing. How do we do it? Well, let's look it up in the Apple Docs. Let's write some code, see how that feels, see if it works, write some tests. All right, yeah, sounds great. And you keep doing that until eventually it's like, oh, yeah, I get this.
Earlier today, we were all talking about, you kind of hit on an interesting thing going and watching the Stanford talks. Talked about the importance of both, the importance of self-study, especially when you're looking for mentorship from other developers. They see that you're willing to put the time in yourself in order to respect their time, too.
That's exactly right, yes. And as somebody who, in my career, I have been a mentor as well, that's one of the things that I encourage in people who I'm mentoring is, so what have you already tried? Like what specific questions do you have about this thing? I'm fine with teaching you some of the hard stuff, but I'd like to see how
effort.
you need to be invested in this. You need to put in some time, and you need to come to me with the specific things that, like, I'm struggling with this,
Sure.
or I don't understand that. Help me get there.
So you've kind of touched on a bit of going through the change to JavaScript and to mobile, and you've gone through these trends in technology changing forever. And you've touched a bit on all of it, but like, what kind of approach do you have when you know that maybe tomorrow, maybe AR glasses will be the cool thing? As a developer, how do you approach that?
It's some of it is passive and some of it is active. I read a lot of blogs and I watch. I subscribe to a number of YouTube channels and stuff like that to kind of stay current in technology. But I have my day job and I have my personal life. My day job is focused on what I need to do to get stuff done at Detroit Labs, satisfy our client needs. If our clients are not asking for that, that kind of limits some of the time that I spend.
Sure.
But then when I see something cool or interesting, I might, on my personal time, research it a little bit. As I've gotten older, I consider myself, in technical terms, it'd be called like a lazy loader. Like, I'm aware that this thing exists, but I'm not going to do a deep dive on it yet until I need to.
Gotcha.
So when a client comes to us and say, we want to build an AR application, or we want to do something with VR, or some piece of hardware that we haven't worked with before, now I have a reason to do it. Okay,
Gotcha.
and I will do that deep dive to understand it as much as I can to solve whatever the client's problem is.
So as you're moving between these different languages, and you're a seasoned developer, that's how I'll characterize it. No mistakes at this point, right?
Nope.
Whatsoever.
Nope, I'm perfect. No, of course not. Every developer, as they progress in their career, are going to have moments of doubt. You're gonna make mistakes. Some of them are going to be big. Some of them are going to be small. As long as you learn from every one of them. Something that's common in this industry and this career is imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Even after 17 years, I'll do a PR review, or I'll write a bit of code, and somebody will point out a stupid little mistake that I've made. I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I did that. If I was a little bit more careful. They're now going to discover that even after all this time, I still don't know what I'm doing.
That happens everywhere too,
Yeah,
right? Like,
that
I
is
mean,
incredible,
Tobi,
yeah.
you were talking about the fact that you still experience
Oh,
imposter
yeah.
syndrome too. And
Right now?
you've been right now. You're concerned.
No, okay.
Tobi can't live up to the hype apparently of hosting a live YouTube channel in Detroit.
But I will say part of that comes with being humble. As a developer, I don't know everything, and I never will know everything. And realizing that, and knowing that every person that you meet, even if they're your junior, you have something to learn from them. So if you go into it with that mindset, it makes your working relationship with all those people so much easier.
That's smart.
Yeah, and it just makes you respect other people, because when you just go with that mindset, that like, oh, I could learn from everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That is really powerful, actually.
So still at Detroit Labs, doing iOS, a couple years doing iOS, and then you ended up making a switch to Android.
I did.
How did that go? Why did that
go?
First.
Yeah.
Why going
so
to Android?
I was on a project where the Android team needed help desperately. So I saw this. I was kind of doing a little bit of management on that team. And I said, I'm a developer. They need help. I'm just going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I already knew Java. At the time, Java was the language you used for Android. So I'm like,
Sure.
I'll just dive in and learn Android. And that was, of all the transitions I've made, that was the one that was the most like, I need to be effective from day one. What do I do on my first day here? Actually, I'm writing production code.
And that's the pressure of the project and
Yeah.
need, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
That necessity came back. That you had that necessity early in your career, and then all of a sudden now that necessity is back and
Yeah.
pushing.
Yeah.
And so that's you've got all these different challenges. Did the challenge to learn Android, and especially learn Android and be productive from day one, did that challenge start to become fun?
It was fun in the way that I was able to be productive, and I was able to deliver something and help that team, be instrumental in the success of that project. In the moment, it may not feel fun because you're frustrated because you don't know what you're doing, and,
Sure.
and you have like cramming, basically. It's like
Yeah.
you're cramming for a test. You got to get as much knowledge as you possibly can to get this thing done. But after it was done and delivered, and the client was happy and the users were happy, and like that was awesome.
And so you've done this now a few times. Did you have a process that was like you went to a book and read it and picked up a process, or did you have just like a stone cold process you used every single time that worked?
It's funny because today I'm not aware of the process. I've probably internalized it to the point where I don't have
You
to
just
actively
do
think
it.
about it.
Yeah.
Over time, I think it just happens organically. Everybody who goes through something like this kind of has to figure out how best they integrate new knowledge with what they already know. In my case, I did run the gamut. I had formal education. I had teachers. I used to buy books until I discovered that technology moves so fast that the book you buy today is obsolete tomorrow. Online tutorials, the Stanford stuff, for example. The wealth of the knowledge of the community, both inside Detroit Labs and meetup groups, and sort of picking and choosing like what works best for me. It's hard to say there's a specific process that I do.
But it sounds like a lot of self-reflection and self-awareness to know this does work for me, or I learn this way, or this is effective and this is not.
Yeah, and it's going to be a combination of things, like depending on the thing I want to learn, and like how quickly I want to learn it, and what my ultimate goals are. I've talked to people too about like how deep of a dive do I do into this technology? I'm like, well, I mean, what is your goal?
Yeah.
Right.
If your goal is just to get an app out in the app store, learn what you need to do just to solve that one problem.
Totally.
But if you have this more existential, I need to understand how the hardware works and all that, take your time and do a deep dive. But that's not going to help you necessarily make a better app.
So something I'm picking up in this journey, as you've been explaining to us, is like, does learning ever actually stop?
No, it does not. But that's true not just in your career, but in life.
If you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
Right? That's universal truth. Well, I went hard on you, but it's universal
Until I retire, maybe
Right.
then I can take a break.
And then you have to learn new things.
Well, he'll
New
retire.
habits.
He'll retire, and he'll focus on his lawn.
True.
Yes,
Brian's a big lawn fan.
I love taking care of my lawn.
Yeah. So now a big shift, not in the traditional sense that you've done before. You went from a very delivery-focused role, several different technical languages, to the business development team as a sales engineer, our very first full-time sales engineer role here. So you went from technical language to business language. Go ahead. It's language of dollars. I know.
Dollars.
Yeah, there you go. I know you want to say
Dollar script.
Yeah.
Dollar script.
You've been holding that one in. So were you able to use some of the things, the openness and learning how you learned, were you able to use some of that in this transition?
A bit. I mean, it was a different kind of transition. I mean, it was it's still a technical role, but not like day-to-day hands-on keyboard coding. It was more of a adjust my mindset to what the task is. In the delivery side of the business, we're focused on solving the customer's problem. Where the sales side is more about what is the problem, and can Detroit Labs solve it, and is it a good fit for our company? So I had to learn that process. Learning that was a little bit different because there is no online tutorial for it.
Right. Yeah.
And it could be anything.
Yeah, and I haven't worked in other sales organizations, but my understanding is the way that we do sales at Labs is kind of unique. We tailor it more for our clients. We're not an assembly line. Yeah. So I had to learn it basically by doing it. And I had some great mentors in our business development team who helped me through that. As for being open, though, I was open to the position. It was offered to me. I actually didn't even know it was coming, and I had to think about it for a little bit.
I remember the conversation.
Yeah, and it's like when you've been doing development for a long time, you start to want to like branch out a little bit and be like, yeah, all the technical coding stuff is great, but like, what does the business side of our business look like? What does it mean to make sales and build client relationships and things like that?
Do you think that eventually helped you, like, just in life in general? So we talked earlier. So Tobi is in that role now, right? Tobi is a sales engineer, so you obviously probably shaking your head a lot, understanding that transition. But we had talked previously, like understanding the empathy for the client.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That is the biggest thing that I took back into the delivery side of the business. When you're talking to a client as part of an opportunity that we're trying to sell, and you learn about what that client's problem is, like you understand better where they're coming from than just getting, say, as a developer, you get a sheet of requirements.
Sure.
Like, there's so much more context when you can actually talk to them and you understand where they're coming from and why this is a pain point for their business, and they need to hire someone like Detroit Labs to help them solve it.
And why they need to do it now. And
Yes.
not tomorrow. Yeah.
Yes.
So you spent about a year in that role, and while you're in that role, right before you go back to delivery, Android changed, and it's all about Kotlin now.
Yeah.
So you move back into delivery, new language again.
That's right.
And you got to be productive on day one.
That's right. In fact, I just read today that Google stated that 60% of the apps in their app store now are written in Kotlin, and all their new libraries now are coming out as Kotlin first.
Wow.
So yeah, it made sense. I got to do Kotlin.
It had to just be old hat at this point, right?
Yeah,
just,
and you know
now
what?
you have another language.
It was the one too where I'm like, I'm really excited for this. Like, I get to do
nice.
something new. It's still a platform I still understood because
Sure.
I knew Android, but one thing that made the transition really nice is Kotlin is such a better language than Java, and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. Like, I can be so much more productive, and it's so much more fun coding in this language. And when you have an experience like that, when I went to iOS, it was Objective-C.
Okay.
And
It's a rough
new iOS developers today don't know the pain of Objective-C.
You've done both, right?
yeah.
Objective-C and Swift.
It was like moving from Java to Kotlin as well. It was just like, why haven't we been doing it this way for so long? It was such an improvement, and it gives you like those joys of like actually building something without having to do a lot of boilerplate stuff that you didn't have to do.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
when you have those kinds of experiences, it just enhances that. Oh man, this new thing was really, really awesome. What is the next new thing I can learn that will give me this same amazing feeling and make me more productive?
So along that line of thinking, if you had 3 recommendations, so I'm either an aspiring developer or I'm a developer looking for motivation or inspiration, what are your 3 pieces that you would tell somebody if they're looking to continue that lifelong learning path?
Well, we've hit on it a few times today. One is to be open to those new experiences. Be open to stepping outside your comfort zone. Don't get too wrapped up in that cozy blanket of what you're doing today, and be open to the fact that you're going to fail, and embrace that and realize that you're going to learn from it. 2, I would say with every
learning.
Well, with every new thing you learn, you will find a way to integrate it with what you already know, especially when it comes to technology stuff. A new language is really the same sort of abstractions over coding that you've seen before.
Yeah.
Now you just have to learn the new syntax. When you can relate something you already know to something new that you're learning, you're going to be able to learn it faster, and you're going to be able to retain that information better. And the third one is figuring out over time how best you learn something like that. You're going to try a bunch of things. Some of them are going to work for you. Some of them are not going to work for you. Pick out the things that work really well. If it's reading books or doing online tutorials, or if it's going to meetups and just talking to a lot of other developers about that technology, figure out what works best for you.
When we talked before, just leading up to your time on the show with us, I had originally asked you, okay, Brian, what is the prescribed way to learn from language to language to language? And I really felt that was one of the strongest things that came out of that conversation, when you were just like, it's all about learning the way you learn.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Everyone's different. Tobi learns different than you.
Very.
I mean, anyways, I just thought that was fantastic. So with that, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We appreciate
This
you
is
coming
great.
on, telling your life story since college, at least, right?
Yeah.
We didn't dive in any earlier. That could
Into
be
the
for
4
a
years of
different
college.
I was a different person
show.
back then.
Yeah, right, exactly. All right, so thanks, Brian. Lots of work goes on behind the scenes. Also, we would like to welcome our newest team member, Diana, who is controlling the social media now, which is fantastic. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon to be notified.
Mm-hmm.
The next scheduled show, though, is Thanksgiving. So we will not be on air, unfortunately.
Yes.
Tobi and I will be together having Thanksgiving dinner, and it's going to be lovely.
Delicious.
Yes, delicious. And then I think our next scheduled show will be December 12th, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Just looking
sounds
for
right.
It's funny, I'm looking for acknowledgement from Dave, our producer, and I got nothing. So I saw Jacqueline behind him, and she said yes. So other than that, every 2 weeks, Thursday, 3 p.m., calendar permitting. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Take care.